Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Captain Logan Show. It's me, Captain Logan, and joining me as always is my fantabulous chat moderator and producer, DJ Martinez. DJ, are you ready to talk about somewhat depressing things this evening?
Oh, I'm used to it by now, sir.
We're going to have as much fun with this as humanly possible, but tonight's lead-in topic is about artificial intelligence and the future of movies. And we've got a writer strike that's been going on for about a week now. It is partially, but not exclusively, about the obvious potential of ChatGPT and other artificial intelligence taking the jobs of writers and other folks in Hollywood. So I wanted to talk about that tonight. I was going to make that its own show last week and didn't get around to it, and we had a Patreon question about it tonight, so I thought I would make that the lead-in topic. We're going to try not to chat about that for much longer than 15 minutes or so, and then we'll talk about whatever you guys want to talk about. We also have a number of Patreon questions again, and if you would like to, once again, I may have to start capping these off, no pun intended, if we end up with too many of these each week. DJ, last week we got 10. I thought that was going to be a big inflated number, given that it was a new Patreon perk, and this week we have 9. So I guess it's popular. I guess patrons are really enjoying getting to front-load questions in the Captain Logan Show. So I'm glad that's working out. If you would like to partake in that and make sure that your question gets talked about, or have a real good chance anyway of your question getting talked about each week, go to patreon.com/geekvolution, and just the $2 tier gives you access to that perk. Again, I may not do all of them every week because I want to make sure, of course, that folks live get to ask questions and that we've got enough time to tackle all the super chats and some pre-writtens and things as well, but also try to just get a little bit quicker if at all possible. We all know that that's not going to happen. I'm not in a different location tonight. I'm just in a different spot in my bunker. I wanted to mix it up. DJ, things keep kind of changing in my life this year. It's been a real different kind of whirlwindy sort of year, especially the last couple of weeks. And so I've been kind of steering into it. You know, I used to like really resist change. Sure. And lately I've been kind of like feeling like, you know what, if it's going to be like this, if I don't even know if I'm going to be able to log into YouTube on a daily basis and other crazy things that are happening in my life, you know, I think I'll just steer into that. I think I'll just intentionally make sure that everything is different on an everyday basis. You know, I'm an all or nothing kind of person. It's going to be a bunch of change or no change. And so, yeah, I'm in front of the Batman art wall tonight. I'm on the other side of the bunker. Probably more echoey. Sounds probably not as good over here,
but it's festive.
Yeah, that's true. I've got my purple mood lighting, my purple Christmas lights that go all around the arcade area here. Yeah.
I like it. I like change. Change is good, people. Change is good.
Now, the main reason I did this is because I streamed Power Rangers last night, and I had all my equipment over here, and I was like, I'll just keep it over here and do it here. That'll be fun. Apologies, by the way, for the late start. I thought doing that would actually make it faster, and then, as I always do, I had a couple of weird tech issues I had to deal with right at the beginning that had nothing to do with that. But anyway, how is everybody? I hope you're having a wonderful evening, and I hope you have a lot of fun with us. Let me go ahead and bring the chat up here. I'm just working with one screen right now, so Tyler says I'm looking great tonight. Oh, it's so nice of you to say that. When Tyler says new room cap, no, it's the same room I was in already. It just happens to be a different section of it. And I could do the show from so many different places down here, DJ, that you'd think it was a completely different location every time.
Hey, yeah, we could do that. I mean, I've done it from a couple different places in this house before this setup was here, so we can mix it up.
That's true. Yeah, no, that's really fun. Hey, guess what, everybody? I did it. I got the thing. As promised, we got the gong. Here it is.
And no, and I can't see it.
Oh, you can't see it. Oh, hang on. Let me fix this. I forgot. I had to call you back, and you can't even see me right now. You got to tell me about these things. That means you couldn't even hear the lead-in music.
Well, I have it in my head. I'm used to the music by now.
Oh, at this point, I mean, we've been doing it for so long. Are we at a year yet? 6 months with the lead-in music?
I don't know. Yeah, at least 6 months probably.
With the Marvel vs. Capcom.
There it is.
So
it's so cute.
So you're on a daily basis just walking around your house going People
basically.
hate it when I hum on camera. There's a couple people that every time I do that leave a comment and are like,
Oh, he's humming on camera again.
please no verbalizing of music. And I don't know, I like to sing. Like, I have a hard time not responding to that with, you know what, I'm gonna do it every time. Like,
hum haters.
Yeah. I don't know, maybe I have a horrible singing voice, but anyway. So, here it is. Here's the gong, and if I can remember to do it, whenever we get a super chat, you're gonna hear the gong, and then you're gonna get hungry, because it sounds like it's time for dinner.
Well, good thing I'm already full. I'm full up.
Maybe I'll start using it for that. You know, like maybe at lunchtime.
I really do want a dinner bell, like on my back deck when the kids are out in the backyard, because we have a really big backyard now.
Yeah.
And I really want to ding 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 ding.
Yeah.
Instead of like, hey, dinner's ready. It's not as classy. Which is what I had to do today because they're on the trampoline.
I wish we had a trampoline. The last time I jumped on a trampoline was with DJ.
Oh man, trampolines are the way to go. I really want an in-ground trampoline, but it's so freaking expensive.
I bet. You know what I want? I want one of those like basketball court trampolines.
Yeah, so you can dunk. Even we can dunk.
Yeah, exactly. Where it's got like a basketball, it's like full court. It's got a basketball goal on either side, and you just jump really high when you're shooting baskets. It's awesome.
They have those. Have you ever been to the trampoline park? They have tons. They have those there.
Yeah. Now that you say that, I guess so. I took Jason there years ago. Anyway, I digress. Tomorrow night on the channel, Austin and I at 10 o'clock Central Time, or thereabouts, real close to 10. I've got a writer's meeting right before that, so I might be a little bit late to that. But around 10 o'clock, we're going to finally do the Superhero Rewind commentary project commentary for the Suicide Squad. So look forward to that. Austin is going to start joining me for those, and we're going to do them every other week. They're going to be on Fridays, and I have been kind of re-preparing for that a little bit because it's been a couple weeks since I did all my research for that, since that didn't work out with some YouTube shenanigans I was dealing with a couple of weeks ago. I say that like it's their fault. It's not. I got hacked. It was Russian hackers. We talked about this a couple of weeks ago. But anyway, DJ, let's go ahead and get into the lead-in topic, and then we'll answer some Patreon questions and some Super Chats if we start getting Super Chats. As always, if you want to make sure that your question, comment, idea, complaint, confusion is discussed on camera, you can leave a super chat in any dollar amount, and that guarantees that we'll do that. And make sure if you leave a regular question, we'll try to get to at least a couple of those tonight as well, that you tag DJ Martinez or wishes he had a gong. DJ will answer to any of these things.
The gongless one.
And we just call him DJ Gongless. When you become a real DJ, that should be your name.
I'll just use gongs. I'll just
you'll
scratch
be gongless. You'll have every other possible
sound, but my switchboard will not have a gong sound effect.
That'll be the only thing that you don't have. Exactly. All right, DJ, we had a question about the lead-in topic, which is part of why I wanted to go ahead and do that on this show. So would you do us the favor of reading that, and then I'm going to get into a couple of articles about the topic.
All right, this is from Bill Mills. With the writer's strike currently affecting films and television production, in no small part due to the introduction of AI writing, or AI using previous works of a writer to get similar styles, are we coming to a point where machines will create our entertainment almost entirely, or at least large portions of it? An extreme example being a movie with mostly, if not all, CGI characters, or bringing back long-deceased actors as CGI characters written by an AI that becomes a blockbuster.
Yeah. And I will actually answer the question, but the bigger question that I can't help but tag onto that is, are you always going to be able to tell even? You know, because especially in the early days of this, because we're coming up into a watershed moment, very clearly. I mean, it's crazy how the AI talk is dominating our lives right now, DJ. Like, there was plenty of it even a few years ago of like what's going to happen when, right? But now it's here. And we were already talking about artificial intelligences that I don't even know if they deserved that moniker, if they weren't primitive enough that we shouldn't have even started calling them that yet, right? Like, Alexa is not quite to anything like where Chat GPT is, for instance. And so we're getting into these things where I think in a few years we're even going to look at what we're all afraid, or a lot of us are afraid, is going to start kind of taking over and dominating and being a bigger part of our lives than maybe we want them to be, even primitive by the standards of a few years from now, where you might start getting into the kind of AI, and I don't know how long it's going to take, I don't know that it'll take that long, that people start to wonder, just like with all the science fiction that we read and watched when I was growing up, whether maybe these things will even start to feel real enough, feel enough like self-aware sentient life forms that we'll wonder if they have their own thoughts and feelings and a soul. But I think even in the early days of it, which is where we're at right now, you're going to have a writer's name, DJ, attached to a film, and you're not always going to be able to tell how much that writer actually did on the project, which is not really any different from how it is right now.
Yeah, they're very, very loose and not very descriptive with writer credits.
Yeah. Because we were already having, well, and I say that even just with writers, with the collaborative nature of the medium, but more than that, just you hired a guy. I mean, this was always the problem, even going back to when I was a kid. You hire a guy to write especially with blockbusters, to write a script, and then he gets rewritten, and then he gets rewritten, and then you have, 30-something drafts sometimes. That was a number bandied about recently with Ant-Man 3, that it had... Or no, I think it was Doctor Strange 2, actually, that it had like 33 different writers. 33! That's freaking crazy! And so at the end of the day, like, you have all these people that contributed. How much of their work is in the piece, who knows? And then more recently, with things like Rise of Skywalker, that's the example that was most made fun of that comes to mind anyway. There's how much of this was written by Reddit, right? Where like there is a screenwriter, Trevorrow, I think, technically wrote that, but then there's all these mandates from on high, it sounds like, with a project like that, where this is what the fans really want. So you just take all these things that Reddit says and you cobble together a script, and then Trevorrow's name is next to it, or whoever wrote that. Maybe it wasn't no, not Trevorrow. Who wrote that? I can't remember. It's been too long. So and then now you're going to have exactly the same thing, but with an artificial intelligence. So this is an article that comes from Variety. The WGA would now allow artificial intelligence in script writing, as long as writers maintain credit. So when we see that in a movie, finally, DJ, and I don't know, maybe it's already happened with a couple of things, who knows? But when we see that with a movie, is there going to be a credit that says, and AI wrote this first, but then this guy, who's an actual human being, made it feel more like a person? Like, is it going to say that? I doubt that it will. I doubt that you'll ever know when it was involved. No, yeah. And I think after a few years, with major Hollywood projects, you'll just assume that that's probably how it was done.
Yeah, that's exactly how the studios want to cut back and save money. Is like, oh, we'll just throw this into an AI, it'll produce the script, and then we'll bring in a human to like fix the problems. And it'll basically be a rough draft, so we don't have to pay a writer to do that part.
Yeah, exactly. And with television, there's a lot of speculation that what this will turn into is the replacement of the writer's room, where you'll have just one guy, maybe a couple, that have to rewrite and doctor scripts, but that initial legwork can be done by an AI that just has, a few initial broader ideas fed into a computer. Mutali says that Doctor Strange 2 didn't have 33 writers; it was rewritten 33 times. Okay, that's the piece of information I heard that I got wrong. So thanks for that. And then Connor says screenplay by Terrio, story credits to Trevorrow and Connolly. Okay, cool. It's all coming back to me now.
Should it, though? I don't think that's information you need in your brain.
It was one of those T words that means basically the same thing. No, I'm kidding. The Writers Guild, I'm reading this Variety article, the Writers Guild of America has proposed allowing artificial intelligence to write scripts as long as it does not affect writers' credits or residuals. The Guild, which is interesting because one of the major reasons the strike is happening, and we haven't talked about this on camera yet, is because of the lack of residuals. because the model has changed so much with streaming that so it's still the same more or less with television, but with streaming, which is where a lot of people are finding work right now, there you don't have the same kind of residuals that you did before, where you keep getting paid every time something is played in reruns or on syndication. And I guess that's, DJ, still got to be affecting, even if you have that deal on television, where you still get paid every time something plays later, and it's not just this one somewhat larger, from what I'm hearing, upfront fee with streaming. You're still not going to get anything like the kind of residuals that you used to, because the way most people are going to watch that stuff later on is on streaming.
Yeah, you don't get the residuals, and you just don't have a job for 9 months out of the year. Like, everything's shot at once, everything's released at once, and you go home and you're done. And
That's
you have
right.
to find new work. Like, you used to have, being a TV writer was a cushy job. You had a job, a solid job for 9 months. You were on set, you were writing episodes as they came out. Like, now you write for a couple weeks and then you're done, and then you get nothing for that show ever again. It's super rough.
Yeah, it used to be like 40 weeks out of the year, because you'd be working on a 22, 26 episode show, which was brutal, but I mean, you got paid.
Yeah, it was a working job.
This idea, and some people got very wealthy with it, even on maybe not the most insanely successful shows. Like, I don't think it used to be, in order to make a real good living at writing in Hollywood, you had to be one of the big top tier shows. That seems to be true now. And you're hearing a lot of kind of naysayers online, and I'd love to know your 2 cents on the strike itself, DJ, here in a second. But you're hearing a lot of kind of naysayers, or people who I think just don't know enough about the situation, whose response to the strike is, oh, millionaires just want more money. And I'm like, that's not really what's going on. Not for the majority of them.
Writers are not actors.
Yeah, and I think some of this is maybe affecting actors as well. Like, I think a lot of regular working actors are taking some cuts too. Maybe not to the same degree that writers are, but I think everybody in the industry is hurting for some of the same reasons, DJ. Especially with television. Again, you're not working most of the year. You don't keep getting paid after set, because I mean, some actors would also get deals like that too. And a lot of those deals have changed.
Yeah, and there's like rumblings that there might be a triple joint strike sometime this summer with actors, writers, and directors. Was the third one? I can't remember.
Yes, directors is. I think directors is the third one. Yeah, a lot of the information, by the way, that I'm spouting out right now, I got from the Kevin Smith podcast, from Mark on the Kevin Smith podcast. He does a wonderful 15-20-minute breakdown at the beginning of their most recent episode, which just came out yesterday, and I listened to it this morning. And if you want more information about this, and if you want it from the perspective of a writer and somebody who is much more familiar with the guild itself than your average even writer, I think, somebody that's been in the industry for a long time, I would go listen to that. That seems to be one of the better sources on this. But DJ, what is give us your response to the strike itself, and how you feel about the reason that the writers are striking? Like, is that something that you would find yourself supporting, or do you think that they're handling it the right way?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know that they have too many options and ways to handle it, but I think, yeah, absolutely, the game has changed dramatically since, I mean, just in the past 10 years, it's completely different. So I think there should be negotiations, and they do negotiations with the producers like every few years. Just this year, when they sat down to do the negotiations, they couldn't come to an agreement, so they just had to go on strike because they weren't budgeting at all.
It's every 3 years.
Yeah, and they just couldn't come to an agreement. The studios weren't budging at all on the AI thing, and they weren't budging on the residuals thing, so they just had to go on strike. So I understand it. I don't know. I think also that the WGA is also being a little too extreme with their solutions. Like, I don't think they're ever going to get what they want. Like, they're mandating at least 6 writers on every project. Like, you have to hire. That's what they want. I don't think they're going to get it, but they want at least 6 writers hired on each project. to navigate around the mini rooms problem that they're having now with streaming, where they just bring a bunch of people in, and because you used to just make a pilot, and then if it got picked up, then you would hire the writers and they would finish the thing. Now you get like they get a bunch of writers in a room, and they get them to do like 3 or 4 ideas for the show, and then they have to spend weeks doing that. And then if it doesn't even get picked up, then that was just wasted time. They have to go get a new job, and there's no security there. So they're trying to get around with that by having the studios hire at least 6 writers, but that's not a good solution either, because some shows are written by one person and they don't need to hire 5 other writers, and that would just be weird and kind of ruin the artistic integrity of that piece. So.
That's what I was going to say. You'd be messing with artistic integrity going the other way. So that seems like another extreme. Like, one of the problems that Hollywood has right now, and arguably to some degree has maybe my whole lifetime at least, is too many cooks in the kitchen. And a solution to that, I don't think a very good one, is, well, just have a robot write it, and then have somebody else rewrite that, and hope that they're working from something that it sounds, real and human enough in the first place, that they can cobble something together that still feels like, if not a artistic piece, at least something that is still about human beings, sort of about something, or just entertains an audience, at least. So, I don't know, there's certainly got to be a middle ground there. You're hearing also some detractors with the writers strike saying, well, I mean, you guys are the problem. Like, maybe if you'd write something decent in the first place, I would actually be on your side with this, but I keep seeing all these things that suck, and you guys are the ones writing them, so you don't deserve to be paid in the first place. And to that I say, well, that's hyperbolic. Even if you don't like what's being made, first of all, it's more complicated than there are no good writers in Hollywood. I hear that all the time. I don't know about you, I hear that all the time. Hollywood, it's bereft of good writers.
I don't know. That's probably your circles that you're going in. But yeah, I mean, I hear that sometimes.
No, it's not even our audience. I hear it from older people.
Well, yeah, but that's just, I mean, everyone when they get to a certain age hates everything. That's like human nature.
Sure, but I don't know. I think that is a popular attitude, and I'm hearing writers complain about that attitude. So I know it's not just my own circles, like they're hearing it too. That came up on Kevin Smith's podcast, and there were people in his audience that were saying it. Live during the show, and I was like, well, that's not fair, because yes, there are some crap writers, obviously, and there's people that fail upwards. I talk about that all the time.
Yeah, of course, there's always going to be that.
There's showrunners and people that are currently in control of some of my favorite things that I think are talentless hacks, and I'm not going to name any names, but one of them rhymes with Furtzman.
I thought you were gonna say it rhymes with Flitzflarlin.
No, that's a whole different situation. He's not show running anything. He's got a comic book. He's doing his own thing. That's that's whatever.
He's trying his darndest to get some stuff off the ground.
But just as often, what ends up happening is, again, the too many cooks in the kitchen problem, where the people that are too in control of the creative work are not the creatives themselves.
Yeah, exactly. And so let's add another cook in the kitchen who's not even a real person. That's great. Yeah,
it's basically like when an owner of a restaurant that can't make an omelet, it tells you how to cook the filet mignon.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh, I mean, I deal with this every single day. Like, it's any creative field.
I bet.
Like, I'm a UX designer, and I have to get input from like salespeople and support people and just general straight up managers or like stockholders and stuff. Like, it's any business. It's not like if you can't say all writers are terrible, because they're not getting to do exactly what they want. They're having to please a billion people. They're getting guys coming in and just making decisions for them. Like, it's not like,
there's unless you get there's mandates from on high. They don't get to speak from the heart much of the time. Yeah.
Unless you get just a straight independent movie written and directed by one person with like a small crew, then you can say, okay, that was that guy's vision. But usually it's 1,000 cooks in the kitchen, especially on film. It's like the biggest creative medium that you can have. There's hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people involved.
Thomas Lowe says there are great non-superhero movies that came out in the past 5 years. A lot of the people that have that attitude are folks that don't watch anything but the big major mainstream stuff. The people that tend to complain about Disney and Paramount Plus and big streaming services. People like me that that just watch a lot of this kind of stuff to keep up for work, or I don't have time to look at as much of the real honest to God good artistic stuff. But I recognize that it's out there, and from folks I talk to, and occasionally when I'm able to just sit down and watch something because I feel like it, that's what I tend to gravitate toward. Let's use this opportunity to shift a little bit, DJ, into the AI question on the whole. What does the future of this look like? Where will be managers, will be irritating managers that are talking to somebody trying to get a job, DJ. Where do we see ourselves in the next 5 or 10 years?
AI, where do you see yourself in 10 years?
Yeah, exactly. We're interviewing the AI. Because the question was, do we think that we'll see movies and TV shows and things 100% made, by a computer, by AI? I think you'll see certainly that trend. I think you'll see.
It'll be a gimmick for a while, right? It'll be like, it'll be a gimmick for a while. Like, we're the first fully AI written movie, and then a couple people jump on board, and then I think the bell curve will go back down, and we'll still use it as a tool, but I don't think it'll work to just completely. I don't know. I think people will be able to see through it a little bit, just like AI art. Like, you can look at AI art and you're like, oh, that's pretty cool. But it's AI. It's AI art when you see it. It's like funky looking, weird, like Play-Doh hands that they can't do hands. They can't do mouths, right? There's a couple funky looking, uncanny valley type things about it.
Yeah. So I have a somewhat different perspective, and I'm going to argue with you a little bit, DJ. I can't help but feel a little bit less optimistic about it than you. I think it's bleaker than that. Because there's when you look at just the CG side of things, just the visual effects side of things, I have seen people in my lifetime accept things on the big screen that absolutely baffle me. That I can't believe people are buying and taking seriously and seeing what I'm looking at as a cartoon as a live action film. It drives me crazy. Some of the things that still make money that people just accept, and I think sometimes it's because we've been dealing with it for so long that you've got kids now that have grown up and just haven't watched enough earlier movies to really appreciate the difference, where they've been kind of programmed to see something that to me looks just very fake as that looks real. I think the same thing could happen in writing, and I think the same thing already kind of has happened in writing, because I think you have too many people that accept really crappy writing. Forget, DJ, that it's whether it's done by a computer. I don't think there's that much of a difference potentially. I guess we'll see, but I don't know that there's going to be that much of a difference in the quality of some of these things, and massive plot holes, whether character motivations make any sense, whether characters seem fully developed, whether stories seem character driven at all. I don't know if there's going to be that big of a difference between a cold computer makes a thing based on real writer's works and approximates it, and then one guy doctors that, versus, again, a bunch of people that all got their mitts on a thing and somewhere the script got lost. I don't know if there's going to be that much of a difference between it. I think what's a lot more likely to happen is it won't be used, because let me also say that I don't think on the face of it, it's a bad idea to use it as a tool on principle. I really don't. I think it is actually possible to get some decent things out of this. I also don't know where the definition of art is in all of this. It gets very complicated. If I start with an idea, but then however small a notion the computer gives me, and I use that, is that my idea or not? There's a very lengthy philosophical question that we could have about this whole thing. But I'm not against it on principle. I am against it in the practice that I think Hollywood is liable to use it for, DJ. Because the way movies have been being made by Reddit lately, the way you go back to what was that? Diversions. Diversion. You go back to that, where that
Diversion,
was a lady who was looking at all the major trends. I'm seeing the super chats. We'll get to them soon. Looking at all the major. Thank you guys. All the major. That's foreshadowing. You'll hear that later. You get all the major trends that were going on in young adult fiction at the time. And you basically had a woman that, whatever that author's name is, who did the same thing that ChatGPT is doing, but manually, right? Where she just goes in and she cherry picks all the major stuff that made these things popular, hobbled it all together. It didn't seem like she really had an original thought in her head at all, and it was successful. It worked. The same kind of thing is liable to happen with this, at least for a while. I think, and this is where my optimism where I do have a little bit of optimism, DJ. I think Hollywood is going to ride this train for a while. And I don't think it's going to be gimmicky the way you're talking about it, by the way, because they're already saying that in order to get around the writer's strike and actually have projects getting started, they're going to, right now, have computers, or I keep saying computers, AIs, write things that then later are going to be doctored by a real person. I don't think they're going to make a big deal out of that. I think they're just
well, that's not what I was talking
going
about.
to do it.
You asked if it was going to be fully AI, and that's what I was talking about. That's what I would say they would call a gimmick, is this is our first fully AI written movie. And then I said, basically exactly what you just said. It's going to be used as a tool in the future, but there'll still be writers involved. I don't think it's ever going to be fully.
Oh, okay. No, I'm sorry. I misunderstood what you meant. Because what I'm saying is, I think it's with big major Hollywood projects. I'm talking about like blockbusters and things. I think you're going to have AI mitts in everything.
Yeah, I think it's just going to be a tool, just like the internet, that we're going to have to learn how to use.
Okay, apologies. I thought you were saying that a few things will do it, and it'll be big for a while, but then they'll realize it's not working and they'll quit doing it. Because where my optimism does come in is I think this is going to lead to the rise of potentially an independent filmmaking renaissance.
Yeah.
I think you're going to have a bunch of people who want to make things the old-fashioned way, and you're going to see a stark contrast between the real human things they're making and the even colder, more sterile things that Hollywood will be making. Unless you can't tell the difference, because I still think it's possible you won't be able to fully tell the difference. But it could lead to a rise of independent stuff. It's just nobody's going to make any money. That's my worry, is that this just will not be a field where anybody can make any money anymore.
Yeah, you have to. Writers are going to take a hit. You're just going to have to write because you have to write. Like watch Spielberg's most recent movie about the Fabelmans. Just like I'm an artist because I have to be an artist.
Yeah,
that's just what I am. Not because it's like the American dream anymore. It's just I just have to.
Isn't that sad?
But it's been the stereotype of an artist since the beginning of time. It's like the starving artist. So I don't know. I think this is just how history is going to go. It's going to be a tool like the internet that can be a good thing or a bad thing. You can use it to help you, or you can use it to hurt you and do all your homework for you and become a moron. Whatever it's up to you. I mean, you got to, just like fire and guns and every other tool that we've ever made. You gotta use it right.
My worry is just that at the point where it can do everything, where it gets that extreme, it's not necessarily going to feel the same as all these other things that separately, well, it's a tool and it's overused sometimes, but eventually we come to some kind of happy medium or something. So yeah, I mean, obviously I don't exactly know what's going to happen. But yeah, no, I mean, it sounds like you and I are seeing things maybe going about the same place. I just... But
it's still sad. I mean...
Yeah.
But, who knows?
The sadder thing for me is just... Because, again, I think you can still get something akin to real art out of this. It's just that it gives Hollywood even more of an excuse to... never find that that medium, that balance between art and business.
Yeah.
Where it's like, I get, like, I'm not naive. I understand that for a lot of big wigs in Hollywood, it is entirely business first, and they don't care about the actual projects and wouldn't even watch them if they didn't have to. I think there's certainly a lot of that goes on, but it just hurts my feelings because I know both things are possible. I know, it's very, very risky, especially with super high profile, expensive projects, but I know that you can make a lot of money with a thing. It doesn't always happen, but I know that you can make a lot of money with a thing because it resonated with a lot of people, as opposed to tricking them into going. And I just wish we could get back to trying that more. It also makes me wonder, though, if this means that movies get cheaper to make in general, and if weirdly that ends up increasing the quality of them.
Well, the writers are the most underpaid people besides visual effects artists, so I don't know if they're going to save that much money. Maybe if they start underpaying the actors, then that'll get some money back in their pocket.
But there's a lot of talk that more of that's going to have to happen too, so I don't know. Because you're already...
Which would be more acceptable, because they're paid way more than writers, like not even close.
You're already seeing big franchise projects like with Marvel not paying the actors anything like they were with Downey and everybody in the big Avengers days, partly because the movies just aren't making the money they used to. Yeah,
they don't have anything to negotiate for.
Yep. That's another part of the strike too, which we didn't talk about. I'll just mention this real briefly. The fact that this is something that Mark in that podcast was talking about. The fact that, and by the way, usually I don't talk about people that I don't know by their first name, but I can't remember his last name, so that's why I'm not using it right now. But anyway, I don't have it in front of me. But he was talking about how one of the other things that they're demanding for, and I actually agree with this one, one of the things they're demanding for with the writer's strike is for streaming services to be transparent about how well their shows are doing, and movies, because, and you and I have complained about this a lot on the show, just never knowing the numbers. We don't know how well anything is doing, and I want to know that, because I can't tell when we're trying to analyze any of this how popular anything is anymore. But it's much more important when you're in the industry to know how well your stuff is doing. Like, I'm just a fan that's curious about it and irritated that I can't know. But if you're an actor in a show, or a writer in a show, or the showrunner of a show, you need to know the numbers, because, like you just said, how are you supposed to negotiate your contract if you don't know what leverage you have?
Yeah, that was one of the demands from WJ, was requiring pay based on how well a show is doing, and to do that, all the streaming services would have to release all of their numbers, and they were like, nope, and they immediately didn't even respond to that one. They're just like, nope, that one's off the table. What else you got?
Yeah, and something I never thought of that he brought up is the only reason that they had to release those numbers before was because of advertisers.
Oh, that makes sense.
And that had never occurred to me. But what's interesting is, in order to stay afloat, a lot of these streaming services are now having to have ad-based tiers, but because they also have not ad-based tiers, and I don't know if the ads are the majority of any of the revenue stream of those things, because you're still paying for subscriptions, I don't think that's actually going to really make a difference. Yeah. As far as getting the numbers released.
Yeah, it's a mess, and it's probably going to go on for months and months. So he said watch older movies, guys, because nothing's going to be coming out.
He said he thinks the only way that this is resolved by the end of summer, is if the other two guilds jump on and Hollywood shuts down. He said that'll make the negotiations have to happen faster, for obvious reasons, because then. You can't at this point have the computer do everything yet.
You still need actors.
You still, yeah. Well, and he was talking about how the Teamsters are on board this time, and they weren't before, so they're shutting whole days down in projects because they're not driving equipment anywhere. So they can't even shoot because people don't have their props and their cameras and their food and stuff.
Yeah. It's crazy. Crazy times.
Well,
This is where I'm so happy to be a retro, like an old movie watcher, and I don't
Right?
keep up with any of this stuff, so none of my shows are getting canceled or anything. I don't even watch TV.
None of my shows are canceled. They all got canceled 20 years ago.
My movies came out, yeah, forever ago. They're not in any danger. But I mean, obviously, I care about it. I care about the industry, and I wanted to keep going. Just joking, guys.
Real quick before we get to, I want to go ahead and maybe tackle some of the super chats that are about this topic, if we have any, before we get to Patreon questions and other stuff. But real quick, let me tack on a point that I meant to make at the beginning of this, which is, as much as I don't know, to echo something DJ said earlier, that I don't know what else the writers would do but strike again. And it's interesting that in 2007, they struck because they were worried that something like this was going to happen when streaming got popular. And now it has happened, and so they're striking again. That was another part that Mark talked about that I wasn't aware of. He said, yeah, this is kind of what it was about in the first place. But as much as I don't know what else they would do, there is that worry, and I was going to read an opinion piece about this. Maybe we'll do a part 2 next week or something, DJ, because I sent you an article that I wanted to tackle that we don't have time for. But in this opinion piece that GG and I read that was fascinatingly positive on AI writing.
Yeah, it was very biased. It was not weighing both sides at all.
No, I didn't think so either. That's why I wanted to talk about it. It was suggesting that the writer's strike itself is going to exacerbate this problem or make it happen faster. And that is probably true, right? That, like, okay, so, I mean, it has to be. We already got the news that Hollywood is going to start using ChatGPT to write scripts. So it's like, well, part of the reason they're striking is because they don't want to lose jobs to the AI. And since they're striking, now they're going to use the AI faster. But what else are you going to do?
I don't know. Make the working conditions manageable.
Yeah.
But no, who would do that? No, that's crazy.
No, I just mean the writers. Like if the writers are making this happen faster because they're striking, I think that's a risk they have to take, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's their only big tool they have in a union. But yeah, we got a couple super chats about this. The first one is from Mutale.
Yeah.
He says, for 35 South African Rand, would you like to see the hologram and drone technology Mysterio used in Far From Home be used in making movies in the future? Also, better Doc Ock, PS4, or Spider-Man 2?
So my answer to that is yes, because it looks more realistic than current CG. If you could get like holodeck level holograms where you couldn't tell the difference when you were walking around them, with the exception of the giant monsters, like those didn't look great. But when it's making like buildings and people and stuff, that all looks real.
Yeah, it does. Well, I mean, it's CG. I mean, that's like the most unrealistic technology I've ever seen. Like, like, you'd have to look at it from like one angle. It would only work from like one angle. It would be so crazy. Have you seen?
Well, that's always been the conceit though with holograms, right? Like, again, that's the holodeck thing where it's made of. It actually works a little better in Star Trek because it's a combination of light effects and, as far as I understand it anyway, it's supposed to be a combination of like light and what's the word I'm looking for? A replicator. So it's temporarily turning light into matter is basically the idea. So then you would not only physically be able to see all sides of it, but you could touch and interact with it. And the Mysterio holograms were almost to that level.
Have you ever seen a live drone show now?
I've only seen footage of them.
Yeah, me too. But they did one for like the Super Mario Bros. Movie at like Santa Monica Beach, and it was like making all the different shapes of the Mario characters and like the logo and stuff. But the problem is, all you hear is like there's thousands of drones all at the same time making the loudest noise possible, where it just sounds like a bunch of drones flying everywhere.
Boy, that's a really good point. Yeah, and then just for the sake of dramatic effect in that movie, when the drones are flying around, they're making a lot of sounds, but they also can sneak up on you in that movie. So, like, what kind of sense does that make?
It's a very realistic building falling down, but it sounds like a herd of bumblebees. What's going on?
That's a terrific point. So, yeah, the technology's not quite there yet. But yes, I mean, like, again, I support any of the stuff that can be used as a tool to enhance the experience, not take me out of it, and that doesn't replace the human artistry of it. So it gets tricky when people are losing jobs, because that's certainly unfortunate, but we can have an argument about the price of progress or whatever, of course, where, like, to some degree, you're always going to have to deal with a certain amount of that. And then the hope is that the new technologies open up other avenues that create new jobs. But the problem is the technology all across the board with stuff right now is getting so much better that it does seem to be eliminating jobs more than it's creating of them. Whereas at one time, these kinds of things would create more jobs, where it's like, okay, so you're not, for instance, you're not going to need as many model makers and carpenters when you replace model work with CG, but you got all these visual artists that have to be involved. So you're creating jobs. It's not a lateral move. It's not like your model maker can necessarily get in the computer and make, like, he might not have that skill set, but it at least still employs more people. So there are a couple of different conversations we have to have. There's the artistry of it. There's the question of, is this still a human? When do we get to a place where we can't say anymore, this is a thing made by humans, about humans, for humans? And then there's also the argument to be had about job creation and deletion and replacing human beings, not just replacing human art. So those are two completely different conversations.
Mm-hmm. Did you have an answer for his Doc Ock question?
I guess I missed that part of it. Sorry.
Second part of that. Better Doc Ock, PS4 or Spider-Man 2?
Oh, apologies there. I've only played through Spider-Man 2 the Spider-Man PS4 game once, and some of what's done with him is not sticking with me super well. I remember liking it fine, but I wasn't, like, blown away by it the way some people seem to be. Like, some people just seem to have their minds blown by it and thought that was the best iteration of the character. So in the moment, I guess I'm going to say Spider-Man 2, but I think they're both doing interesting things, just from what I can remember about that game anyway. I don't know, it's not sticking with me super well.
Cool.
I've slept since then.
many times.
No, like twice, I think.
Mutali has another super chat. AI being used to detect plot holes in scripts could be helpful.
Yeah, sure.
Also, would you rather owe money to Lalo Salamanca or MCU Kingpin?
Oh my God, that's an awesome question. I love that. Well, that would be horrifying on both ends. That is a flip a coin kind of question. Because, yeah, Lalo Salamanca is... I think he is almost scarier. Well, here's what's weird. They're both scary for somewhat similar reasons, right? Because Kingpin is really soft-spoken and is menacing when you get to know him. I mean, he looks kind of threatening also, of course. But, like, he just sounds like he's gonna cry at any moment. And, like, he is sympathetic to anybody's plight, and then he gets very, very angry and slams your face over and over again into a car door. So that's horrifying. But Lalo Salamanca is the kind of guy that's, like, almost like laughing and dancing when he kills you. It's like, which of those things is... I think the Kingpin thing is slightly scarier, but if I saw both of those guys at the same time, I would just take my own life, I think. Like... Yeah, those guys are both... That's an awesome question. That is comment of the stream right now. I love that question. That's awesome. That's tough.
Good job.
What was the first question?
He said AI being used to detect plot holes in scripts could be helpful.
No, I think so too. Now, right now, ChatGPT seems to make more mistakes than it can correct them. It's a lot... I played around with it a little bit, and it's a lot of fun to ask it, like actual factual questions. It does get a lot of stuff wrong. I have, because I'm kind of conceited and full of myself, I've asked it several questions about Geekvolution and myself, because it's kind of fun to see what it knows about the channel. And I asked it today, in preparation for this, I messed around with it a little bit, and I asked it what kinds of things Captain Logan collects. and in a list of action figures and things, like Star Wars came up, and I was like, I own almost no Star Wars. I don't know where you got that from. So like, it makes a lot of mistakes. There's a lot of stuff that it doesn't know. I also asked it to write the first part of a Power Rangers script. I wanted to talk about this because I found myself thinking, well, that's the kind of thing that maybe it could do, and you might almost think a human being wrote it, because that's not the most human kind of writing in the first place, you know? And
it already feels like it was written by an alien.
Yeah. One of the things that was interesting about it was it had a minor plot hole, which was, I just had it write like the first act of a Power Ranger script, and I fed it just a few specifics that I wanted, which I'll mention in a second. And and then it came up with part of a script. And I said I want it to be Mighty Morphin, and I want Tommy as the White Ranger. So at the beginning it says the 6 Power Rangers are in the juice bar or the command center or wherever they are. But then later, Tommy has been off on some random mission, and he just shows up to help out the other 5. And I'm like, but at the beginning, there were 6.
That's actually very, very accurate to that season where they had to write him out because they didn't have any Sentai footage.
But isn't it weird that he's there at first, and then so there's stuff like that. And also, Lord Zed has a viewing globe.
That's pretty sweet.
That was another odd mistake that it made, where like we had the command center, but the viewing globe is in Lord Zed's palace. Well, I asked it to give me 3 things. I wanted Tommy as the White Ranger, I wanted Lord Zed, and I wanted a monster made of breakfast food. So I came up with a monster made of breakfast food, and it named...
A serial killer.
That's good. But it actually named the monster, DJ.
Oh, wow.
And it called it and it gave a detailed description of the monster, and it was pretty good. And it called it the Breakfast Behemoth. And I was like, that's not bad. And the Rangers show up to fight it, and we get the description of what it looks like in dialogue from the Rangers' mouths. And one of them says, is that giant omelet? And then the next one goes, and sausage. And then I remember specifically, there was like 1 or 2 more, and then I remember specifically, the next line is Zach. And Zach says, this thing's making me hungry right now. And I'm like, this is oddly not terrible. For Power Rangers.
Yeah.
Isn't that weird?
Sounds about right. That's pretty crazy. Coming to a Netflix near you, the next season of Power Rangers, coming out this summer during the writer's strike.
Power Rangers GPT, Power Rangers to the rescue.
Sounds perfect.
But I wanted to mention that because it can be frighteningly close to what it sounds like a human being would write. And then sometimes it's absolute nonsense. But again, if you took that and rewrote it, and then the question is that mine just because I told it breakfast monster? You know? Like, should I then get paid? Like, if I was working for Power Rangers, do I get paid every time somebody says breakfast behemoth now? I didn't come up with that. I just said make up a breakfast monster. You know? And then you get into that, like, that kind of, you know, Stan Lee thing, where it's like, yeah. I just threw a writer, like, or I just threw an artist, you know, 3 really vague details, and then he did everything else, but I created it, or I at least co-created it.
Yeah.
I find all this very interesting.
It's going to be an interesting ride. We'll see what happens to the channel. Cap's going to work off AI scripts from now on.
Yeah, well, and I mean, I've considered using it as a tool for things myself, you know, not to completely rely on, but just, you know, for like an organizational tool. One thing I saw an article suggest is that it would be really good potentially for like quiz show questions, you know, for Jeopardy or something. And I was like, that's a good call. Like, you gotta vet it. You gotta make sure that it's accurate. But if the wording is good, why not? Why does that have to be written by a person necessarily? I don't know. Like, I'm open to some of it.
Yeah, I think you have to be. I don't think you can be completely anti or boycotting it. because it's inevitable.
Well, there's that too, but I don't want to just lie down, like if I had an actual like ethical issue with it on principle, but like I don't. I just know we're not gonna do it right. I know we're gonna mess this up.
Let me see if there's any more about this topic. Mojo Froyo and comics. What is your favorite fictional AI? Also, what will AI do to the state of comics? Wow! Whoa! This is a real non-Froyo related question from Mojo.
I know, and I haven't been using this.
Special occasion.
But congratulations, Froyo, for asking something that's not about Froyos. I don't know if that's run out of steam or if you just got inspired.
That's a good question. First of all, what's your favorite fictional AI?
Yeah.
It's like, whew.
Yikes. I mean, there's so many of them. Obviously, Data from Star Trek is way up there. The artificial intelligence in the movie Her comes to mind. I don't know if you ever saw that, Scarlett Johansson.
I didn't. I'm gonna have to get over my Scarlett Johansson dislike to get into that movie,
That's
but I'm
fair.
sure I'll like it.
It's quite good though.
She's been in some things that I've liked. She's good. She was in Marriage Story. Jarvis is a good AI. Classic.
Yeah. Sure. I guess Vision is something of an AI.
Yeah. Yeah. We don't really talk about them like that after Age of Ultron, but yeah, he still is.
The Terminator and Terminator 2. That would be a big one for me.
What is your favorite, Cap?
Oh, and also, gun to my head, if I have to pick just one, it's not even one I've said yet. It is, now that I'm thinking about it, it is Marvin the Paranoid Android from Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy. It's got so many uses. I can use it as a mic drop.
When he gets the question right, he hits it as well.
When I get it right.
Also, he says, what will AI do to the state of comics?
That's a good question. I mean, it could be much the same, where your bigger companies could rely on it to have to pay even less to creators, both in writing and in art, because DJ and I have talked about the like drawn art side of this before, but we hadn't talked really about writing so much. But that could, as that gets more sophisticated, that certainly could win its way into comic books, obviously. But I wonder if you see it as much in independent-made stuff, or if a lot of people that have a passion for comics that know that there's not a lot of money in it will find themselves wanting to not rely on that stuff so much, or if the opposite could happen, or some mixture of both, where people go, okay, well, I can't draw worth a lick, but now this is here, I'm finally going to make my own comic book.
Yeah, both ways. Like
both
artists
ways.
Who've always wanted to make comics but don't know how to write, they can be like, yes, I can finally make my comics. I mean, my boss is doing this at work literally right now. We're making a whole new design system because we're switching to a new design program, Figma, instead of Adobe XD. And we have to, write down all of our requirements and all documentation for all our design system that we'll be using for all of our software. And we're all designers. So my manager's just throwing it in Chat GPT and getting the documentation for like what all the elements of our design system is going to be called and stuff. Because he's not a writer, he's a designer.
Good call.
Which I feel weird about, but he's my manager, so I don't really have a say.
DJ, we are right at an hour here. Why don't we go ahead and take a quick 3-minute break?
All right, sounds good.
If that's cool with you, and we will be right back, everybody, in just a little bit with the second half of the Captain Logan Show. Sorry things are running so late tonight, or I say second half, at least as much of the rest of the show as will happen. We're going to knock out the rest of the Super Chats. We're going to get as many Patreon questions done as possible. And I'm going to use tonight and the next show or two, DJ, as kind of guinea pig shows to figure out how exactly I'm going to handle the Patreon questions, because we're getting enough stuff live right now. I don't know that we'll get to all of them, but we probably should lead with another one when we get back here. So,
okay, sounds good.
See everybody in just a little bit. And we're back. Thanks, everybody, once again for being here. We've got a bunch more super chats, I think. We've got a bunch more Patreon questions. We're going to knock out as much as we can for the remainder of the show. And DJ, let's just get straight away right back into it, sir. Wherever you want to go.
All right, you want to go to, we'll do a Patreon. The first Patreon question before the Bill Mills one, I like saying his name every chance I get, about the AI, was from Jonathan Campbell.
Assonance instead of alliteration. It still makes you sound kind of like a superhero.
Yeah, certainly. Jonathan Campbell, do you have any tips for collecting Blu-rays, comics, figures, etc. on a budget? I'm thinking about getting into collecting some limited things I really care about, but I'm a college student, so I don't exactly have a ton of money to throw around.
Yeah, that's a great question. I have a couple of easy pieces of advice, and then I'll throw this at DJ too, because I'm sure he's got thoughts as well. DJ is also a collector and a specific streamlined collector than I am. He's got a couple of major collections, and I have way too many random ones. That sometimes DJ, I'll have a collection that I forget I even have, and I haven't collected anything for it in like 8 years, and I'm like, I should buy something for that.
Yeah, although my collections have been expanding rapidly the last couple of years since I started the channel. So anyway.
When you have more motivation than just, I like what this looks like on a shelf, or I'm, using it practically for myself. But like when it also becomes practical, and if I buy it right now, I can get content out of it.
Yeah, that's a dangerous phrase. It's like justifying it to yourself. It's like, should I get? It's that can get you over the edge sometimes. Where it's like, do I need this? Should I buy this? Well, at least I'll get a video about it. At least I'll get a video out of it. So I might
did
as well.
it for 10 years with comics.
Yeah.
So my first piece of advice with collecting on a budget is don't assume with everything that just because the price is currently inflated online or high for even legitimate reasons that you'll never find a deal on it. So don't feel like you always have to pull the trigger on, like, say you're collecting retro games and you're like, eBay, Marketplace, Craigslist, whatever you have it, I only ever see this Super Nintendo game for $200. If you don't have the $200 to spend, don't spend money you don't have, or save up forever to get that and assume that you'll only ever find it at that price. Be real patient, because stuff that is valuable and that very often you think of as, well, this is a $200 game, and that's how much it is. You will still very often eventually find somebody that will sell it to you for less than that. And I've gotten lucky so many times with stuff. The other piece of advice I would give you is buy in bulk whenever possible. And I know that's difficult on a budget, because when you buy a large collection of something, you need a lot of money on hand up front. But I think it's smarter, instead of dropping the $10 or $20 that you do have right now on one thing, to save up $100, $200, $300 and see how much of the thing you're collecting that you don't have right now you can get at a time, because the more you buy, the less each individual thing will cost. And a lot of my more recent collections are things that I didn't have a collection of, and then magically the next day I already had a collection because I bought in bulk. And all those individual things would have cost me a lot more over time to amass than they ended up costing all at once. And luckily I had the money on hand. So I know that might sound kind of contradictory, but it's gonna, overall, in the long run, cost you a lot less if you can buy things in bulk. And also, when you do that, don't be afraid to sometimes buy things you have already, because you can always resell.
Yeah, that's interesting. That's something I'm very leery
I could talk about this all day long.
Yeah, I would say don't be afraid of secondhand. It blows my mind. I'm in all these collectors groups on Facebook, and there'll be people in there that'll be like, "Does anyone buy stuff? This is my first thing I've ever bought used." I'm like, what? Like when I started collecting, everything I bought was used. I exclusively bought movies on eBay for way cheaper. Like, so don't get in that mindset of people who like you have to have a new version, because most of the time with Blu-rays, 4Ks, it doesn't matter at all. Like, or toys. Like, why does it matter if you're opening out of the box, especially if you're gonna open out of the box? There's really no reason not to buy it used. So definitely use eBay a bunch. It's so weird. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and someone mentioned eBay, and he was like, "I don't even know if eBay is still a thing." And I'm like, "What? eBay's like so much a part of my life. I can't even imagine the normal person doesn't even like think of eBay anymore." But it's I have such a weird perspective, because it's like I look at eBay like every day almost. So don't be afraid of eBay or secondhand stores. Secondhand stores can be really cool. You'll waste a lot of time going to secondhand stores and finding nothing, but sometimes you find some really cool stuff. And I would say, I think you're probably using on a budget as meaning like you don't have a lot of money. That can mean like I just don't have a lot of money. But I would say do it on a budget. I would say set a number that you're going to do each month. This is my collections. This is my collector's budget. I have $100 a month. And this is what I'm going to spend each month. So that way you don't get in the habit of like, oh, I found this thing and I have to get it right now. I'm never going to get another chance like this. And then you blow like way more than your budget. Like stick to that budget each month. And sometimes you won't use it all and you have a little bit for the next month, but just try to go in with a plan rather than going on impulses, because that's been a problem for me in the past.
Absolutely. Same here. Yeah, I'm something of an impulse buyer. I have a tough time with that. And I have a hard time, there's a fine line between, that was all very helpful advice, DJ, and I agree with all of that. But I think that there's a real fine line between taking an opportunity when it comes up that may never happen again and making that excuse. Because... Yeah. And sometimes it's hard to know whether whether that's an excuse or not. What I mean is, or like if you're right, I should say that this is the right time to be opportunistic. I've had this before with stuff where I'm like, I don't know if this is ever going to pop up again for this price, or like,
I've totally done
this never shows up, and then suddenly, now that you've got one, you see it everywhere, and for less than you paid for it. Like, I've done that.
Oh yeah, or the definitive way to get a studio to release a more affordable version of it is to buy a really, really expensive out-of-print version of it. It's happened to me so many times already. Like you can't see it. It's probably off frame for Cap's window, but the Ray Harryhausen Wonderful Worlds of Ray Harryhausen box set volume 2 from Indicator.
You told me about this.
Like I think I paid like $200, $250 for it because it was out of print. They only printed like 200 of them. It was super rare. Right after I bought it, they did a second printing. I was like, ah. And then I just bought the Four Seasons from Eric Romer by World Cinema Library. I just put a video up this week about this. It's a gorgeous set. I don't feel bad about it. I'm really glad I bought it. But right after I bought it, those movies weren't available at all in America. You couldn't even stream them. You couldn't even rent them on Amazon. Right after I bought it, Criterion Channel got them on their streaming service. And I was like, that's great. Perfect timing. And that means they'll probably get a physical release out sometime in the next few years. But World Cinema Library releases are beautiful, and I'm glad I have it. But yeah, that was silly timing.
One thing I wanted to respond real quick to that you mentioned earlier, DJ, is I'm with you on don't be too afraid of secondhand. There are risks that you take when you do that, and sometimes you get burned. I mean, I certainly have, particularly when we're talking about buying online. I get people in your circles, DJ, because obviously I also collect movies, and I have this with video games too. I get people who are leery of buying media that way because you don't always know how scratched up a disc is. You don't always know if you're going to end up with a case and the disc isn't in it. Like, I've had these kinds of things happen before. I think overall it's worth the risk because it's few and far between. And just with buying things online secondhand as opposed to, well, this even happens with Amazon where you're talking about private sellers. But regardless of whether it's media or just action figures or books or something, when I say media, I mean like movies and video games and digital media, there's still a certain degree of risk you're taking. You could get burned by somebody that I had this happen. This is going to be a very specific situation, but I bought some Batman stuff from a lady once who on Facebook Marketplace, and I've rarely used that for shipping. It was a full set of one of the waves of Batman Hot Wheels, and I never got them.
Oh, wow.
And she sent me the wrong thing. I ended up with a Mandalorian figure, and she had mixed up the orders. And I messaged her about it, and she was like, "Oh no, sorry about that. I'll get yours shipped out, and then you can send me this back." And then I never heard from her again. And I never heard from her again. Yeah, well, I say I never did. A week later, I messaged her. I was like, I haven't gotten this. You haven't given me a confirmation that you sent it. And she messaged me one more time and said she would, and then I never heard from her again. And I was like, what do I do about this? And like, is it even worth going through Facebook's appeal process or whatever? eBay, I've been burned 3 or 4 times where I ordered a thing that just never got here.
Wow, I've never had that happen. That's
sometimes
crazy.
It's the seller's fault, and sometimes it gets stolen off your porch, or a package gets opened up and stolen. I don't know if you've ever had any of those things happen, but
no, I've never had anything from eBay. Obviously, I've got stuff from Amazon because Amazon sucks at packaging, and they just throw it in an envelope and it lands on your desk. I just sent something back this week. I bought the Dragon Slayer Steelbook. Finally got a copy of it. Finally got back in stock, and it came all dented and broken from Amazon because I just put it in an envelope. So I just returned it and shipped it back and got my refund because I'm like, if I'm going to pay $25 for this thing, I'm not going to have a broken one. So I just sent it back. That's the good thing about Amazon. Amazon, you can send anything back, and they'll be fine with it.
That's true.
But yeah, if you're getting like Facebook Marketplace, like you said, or just like I find people on Facebook that are in collectors groups that I just send PayPal and they just ship it to me because there's some really, really good. I just got like a bunch of out of print digipacks from the Criterion Collection for like $16 a piece. Just because, but those guys are like collectors. They know how to package stuff. They know how you want it, and they're really good about it. So that's a little bit of a different.
That's another piece of advice I would give that person though, is also look for trade groups. Like if you're into something already that you already have a collection of, sometimes you don't need money. Sometimes what you need is bartering stuff. You may have, for whatever reason, duplicates of things, or you may have something that you don't want in your collection anymore as much as there's something else that you want, and you can find somebody that you can trade with. I've got a friend who does this with video games. We had him on the channel a few months ago, and I've wanted to get more into trading after talking to him about that.
Yeah, that's something I'm very, very new to. But like just recently, like if you don't use Facebook, I don't use Facebook like ever, but I use it for the groups.
That was a Poor Man's Retro Game Room. That was his channel.
Oh yeah, I remember that. But yeah, just for the groups alone is worth it because you can meet people that are really passionate and really knowledgeable about the things you're into specifically, and you can talk to them about it, and you can get more tips from them, and you can also trade with them and buy stuff from them when they're. It's so sad though being in part of these movie groups and like how often people are like, I got to sell my entire collection. My house burnt down, or like I'm having a kid. I got to sell my whole collection. I'm like, oh, when is this going to be me?
Lost my job.
Yeah. But who knows?
This is going to sound horribly crass when I say this. On the upside, when people have to do that, sometimes your collection can make out for it.
Yeah.
And I don't mean take advantage of people, but I'm just saying if you're in groups like that and you know people who are really desperate for money and have got to sell their collection and you're willing to buy pieces of it, you can get wonderful deals on things. And obviously,
you're helping them out. I mean, don't like barter them. Like, don't try to undercut them. Just don't undercut the prices they're doing. Yeah.
Give them what they're asking for, and very often they'll ask for well under the current market value because they need gas money.
Yeah. I mean, most of
that is a win-win. As crass as that might sound, that's a win-win. You get your thing for less, and they get their gas money.
Yeah. Great question. That question makes me want to live stream more because I want to talk about more of that kind of stuff with people. I should do that. I
feel like I could make half of this channel collecting at this point. I mean, like I thought about just talking more about that subject in general.
Well, because you're still collecting, you're just not talking about it, so you might as well get some, like you said, get some content out of it.
Yeah, like we've been doing the show and tell thing recently on the show here. Oh, you know what? I keep forgetting. We had that. Well, I guess that wasn't a super chat though. That was Patreon. Okay. I guess I don't have to do it for Patreon. It's not just, oh, there's a question. Gong.
Gong. Yeah, that was Patreon. All right.
Okay, I'm sorry. I know that I've addressed this before, but I got to do it again because this is like a regular guy who's with us all the time that I thought would have heard this by now. And I don't mean to call you out, Mutali, but I got to read this. Mutali says, DJ could make money from Geekvolution so he wouldn't have to sell his collection. Geekvolution is the reason, to some degree, the DJ has his collection. I just have to throw that out there real quick.
Yeah, a lot of the things I bought recently have been with my Geekvolution money, which has been a big help.
I guess I should say it's why you have certain pieces in your collection. I don't mean if it were for us, you're not buying movies. I'm just saying that like I know that what I'm saying is DJ does make money from the channel and he spends it on movies.
Yeah. It's mostly what I do, or I use it for like Marvel Legends for my kids and stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah. So it is geeky. It is geeky money. I'm true to Geekvolution, and I only use Geekvolution for geeky things. I'm not sacrilegious at all.
I gotta say I don't only do that myself, but sometimes I need a chicken sandwich.
Well, this is your main gig, man. I'm just a part-timer.
I'm sorry. I hope I didn't say anything I shouldn't have.
No, that's cool. I've mentioned that before, I think on my channel, that it's like I'm able to buy some of these things for this channel with the help of my other channel. So I give credit where it's due. I'm very thankful for my roots.
Well, and I mean, I think we've mentioned that, I do pay you some, but I wasn't sure if you had revealed what you use. I'm sorry. I was like, I don't want to just tell everybody everything about DJ's life. Like,
I've been outed. I'm out of the closet. No, I'm fine with that. But we have one from What is a Super Chat? Super Chat, $2. What is the purpose of AI? Well, how long do you have?
I'm sorry, I'm distracted by a comment I'm not understanding. I don't know if it's a response to something from earlier, but Right Said Ralph in the comments there, which is a name I don't recognize, says, good luck, Cap, with his audience. You and DJ are speaking Latin by comparison. I don't know what that's referring to.
I don't know.
What are we saying that's confusing? Anyway, I'm sorry. I got distracted by that. I want to know what it means.
What does it mean?
What does it mean?
What is Super Chat wants to know, what is the purpose of AI? So he's not leaving his shtick. He's not leaving the shtick like Mr. Froyo.
No, he's not. Well, like DJ said, it's a tool, or at least it certainly should be. It's to do thinking that we can't efficiently do as fast or feel like doing.
Exactly.
Alex says, is he just calling the audience dumb? Because fair. No, it's not fair. And AMC says, I think he thinks you and DJ are Catholic priests.
Well, I don't know. Do we want to reveal that yet, Cap? I know we were saving that for episode 300, but we have both signed up for the monastery service.
I'm already performing weddings. Yeah,
that's true. Are you? I don't know if we've talked about that.
No, I'm not.
Okay.
No, that was a joke.
I was like,
There is weirdly a possibility of that happening, but I've not talked about that yet.
I know you've told me about that.
I did tell you about that.
That's why I didn't know if it was a joke. I was like, wait, what?
By the way, I'm not. I hope I'm not coming off mean when I read that guy's comment. I'm not calling him out. I'm just really curious as to what he thinks we're saying that people wouldn't get, because I want to know. Anyway, I'm sorry. Moving right along.
Right, Mutale, 70 South African Rand. Big one from Mutale.
Thanks,
Cap,
man. Wow.
Would you rather see the version of Guardians 1 directed by Peyton Reed or the version of it by the directors of Captain Marvel? They were considered for it if they weren't able to hire Gunn.
So Reed, I have more of a handle on. The problem with the directors of Captain Marvel is I'm pretty sure that's the only thing I've seen by them. And with Marvel movies, especially at that period and beyond, it's so difficult to tell how much control the director even has over the project. Right? Yeah. Whereas Peyton Reed, I know more or less, I think, how competent or incompetent of a director he is. Right, like I've seen things that I think he more or less had a decent amount of control over, and there are patterns and things in his movies. So I mean, I couldn't tell you which of those is the better director. It would be unfortunate if either of those directors was doing that movie as opposed to Gunn, certainly, and also who's writing it. I mean, I think that's the bigger question, because as much as I like what the Guardians movies look like and some of the directing choices that Gunn makes, like, the writing is what really makes those movies for me.
Yeah. I mean, Peyton Reed has done 3 Ant-Man films and Bring It On from 2000. So
yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. I think I forgot that. Anyway.
He's a proven director. I didn't know that they were both up for that movie. That's crazy. I don't think I was into news that much back then. TH1, let's play. Okay, Tom. First, let me read his other one first.
Yeah.
That's not a Geek Solution question. TH1, that's a After Dark question. $5.
Oh, no.
Captain Logan Show is part of Inside of You podcast.
What?
I don't know. That's a question. Captain Logan Show is part of Inside of You podcast?
No.
LOL.
I have no affiliation whatsoever with Michael Rosenbaum as far as I know.
The opinions reflected.
I listen to it.
I've
actually been binging that show quite a bit lately. I've been going back and listening to episodes I hadn't listened to. I like his podcast quite a bit. Yeah. He revealed recently, by the way. I don't know if anybody's bringing this up later or was going to bring this up later, but he revealed apparently just a couple of days ago that he actually auditioned for and was called back, but didn't get the role of Batman in Caped Crusader.
Wow.
He tried to be the next Batman and almost got it. It sounds like, but. It sounds like the casting directors liked his Batman, but not his Bruce Wayne.
Gotta have both. Gotta have both.
Which is ironic, given that he played Lex Luthor. You'd think that would be the part of it that would be easier for him than the in-costume Batman, especially since he voiced Flash. Like, okay, so the guy that voiced Flash for years on Justice League has a fine Batman voice, but he can't pull off Bruce Wayne.
I don't buy him as a millionaire. He doesn't work for me.
What's weird is I wouldn't buy him as a millionaire if I listened to his podcast before I watch Smallville. It is nuts how completely polar opposite he is from that character, which makes me respect him so much more as an actor. Because he's just a goofball.
Yeah. He's just a goof. He says, LOL, just thought I would bring it to your attention. Great show tonight. It's in the playlist.
Yeah, I don't really know what he's bringing to my attention. I don't understand how I'm affiliated with that podcast.
I guess you were a part of it.
Okay.
But you don't even know. He's using your content without permission.
You may have to elaborate on that, Tom. I don't really understand what's happening, but
Tom likes us to not understand what his questions mean. I think he's going for that. Like the confusion that you mentioned at the beginning of the show, I think is brought to us a little bit by Tom.
He's the one speaking Latin right now, though. It's not me.
TH1, $10. Let's play F, Marry, Kill, but with a twist. Pick any 3 fictional characters, 1 to write a video game for, 1 to write a comic for, and 1 to write a movie for. I call it Game, Comic, Movies. Great show, guys. Okay, so that he turned that one around a little bit. It's not an After Dark question.
He did. We don't have to talk about the first part of it. But what I'm struggling with is, so are we picking creators to make these things?
No, I think we're just picking 3 fictional characters that you would want to write a video game, a comic, and a movie for.
That I would want to write for. Mm-hmm. Okay. Pardon me. And they each have to be a different character for each of those mediums?
Yeah. To stay true to the F, Marry, Kill rules, they would have to be different people.
Yeah, it's kind of weird doing this with media.
Yeah.
Oh, he says I accidentally put an episode of their show on the Captain Logan Show playlist. Okay, I'll fix that, Tom. Thanks, man. So we've spent way too much of the show on that. I made a mistake in a playlist. Okay. Anyway, hey Tom, next time why don't you just say, hey, you put the wrong show in your playlist. You should fix that. How about that? Anyway,
always the puzzler.
okay, so sorry, we'll try to knock this out kind of quick. So it's a TV show, a video game, and a movie. Is that what it is?
It's a video game, a comic.
Oh, a comic. I don't know. It's a little arbitrary to me. Like, I'm not sure that the medium makes that much of a difference with the characters that I would pick. I'm not sure. If it's all superhero, especially. I guess he just said character, though.
Yeah, just fictional characters.
Sorry, it's just so broad.
It's broad.
I'm having a hard time getting.
Usually with F, Marry, Kill, you give 3 characters, and then you have to choose, and you have to just arrange them. You don't have to come up with the characters, so it's harder.
Yeah, you start with them, and you say which ones would you put in each slot. Yeah. Sorry, I'm being too critical of the question. But yeah, for a, I don't know. It's so broad. Like I don't have a super great answer right away. Let's ask Tom. You don't have to do it in the super chat. Let's ask Tom to actually pick 3, since that was the initial premise, and then we'll arrange them, because this is going to be so generic, and you guys are going to like, I'd love to do something for Batman. I'd love to do something for Tick. Like, you guys know what my answers are. Let's go to another Patreon question, DJ.
All right. You wanted me to mention this one earlier. We talked about this. What would you show someone to hook them? This is from SS Jerry. What would you show someone to hook them to Power Rangers, and in what order? Comics, games, etc. can be suggested.
Yeah, so I think this is kind of an impossible sort of question, because me and everybody I know that's an adult that is into Power Rangers was into it when they were kids. Like, it is almost universally a nostalgia-driven property, I would say. So I could answer this if you were a kid. Like, if you're 8, I could, versus 6, versus 12, like all the way up through 12. I could tell you, if you're 12, watch Time Force, or watch SPD or RPM.
Dino Thunder.
If you're 6, start with Mighty Morphin. If you're 25, I don't know if Power Rangers is gonna be your thing. Like, here's the thing: if you're already a big Godzilla person, you're into giant monsters, or you're into robots and things, you might enjoy like making fun of it. But I don't know if you're gonna like legitimately get into Power Rangers.
Yeah, you would just go watch the things that it's pulling from. You would watch the original Godzillas. You would watch the original mech stuff.
Yeah. While it was coming out, I would have said the one big exception for this, he's talking about different media, the one big exception for this story-wise would have been Go-Go. I would give Go-Go to anybody. Because I think it is like Buffy level writing for Power Rangers. Like, if you like, and I'm talking about I'm talking about the second ongoing from Boom Studios, Go-Go Power Rangers. That is really good high school teen drama stuff with some wonderfully well-drawn action. If you like that kind of thing, you can't go wrong with Go-Go, until that book just becomes Power Rangers and just gets mired in the rest of the mythology and stuff that you're going to get lost in if you don't know any of the lore, and that you're maybe not going to appreciate as much once it stops being as much about the interpersonal drama. So I would say that for adults, the best thing to do with Power Rangers is gaming. Because there's a lot now, and I'm very, very into it myself. It's a huge hobby of mine at this point. There's a lot of really great Power Rangers gaming that is aimed at adults before it's aimed for kids. I talk about the board game all the time. Everything Renegade is doing, the board game, the deck builder, and then maybe the role-playing game if you're into tabletop, but I think even that you'd probably want to already know Power Rangers. But what I mean is, there's maybe a gateway here for adults where you start with it as a game and then you look at bits of shows to inform the games. Because I'm to a place now as a Power Rangers fan where I almost think of it as the board game first. Like I've gotten to a place where all of the shows are like supplementary material to create this, what I think is a much better use of the property. With the board game, like I'm to a place, DJ, where I'm almost having a hard time even enjoying sitting down and watching Power Rangers because it's become a different thing for me. And so like with comics, I don't know if you can even as an adult really sit down and appreciate the comics that are aimed more at adults, just because they're aimed at adults that had a nostalgia for it already. That makes it harder. So play the fighting game, play the board game, play the phone game. There's a lot of really great gaming for Power Rangers, and then just think of the lore as the backdrop for these, really, really complex, interesting, passionately made gaming projects.
Yeah. Let me go back to super chats. We have one from Ben Script Super, $5. Just jumping in, saw the topic, and my first thought was, God, I hope AI doesn't write movies.
Well, it's gonna.
That's not a question, just a statement and his opinion.
Yeah, and he wasn't here for the lead-in story, but we've learned that the plan for a lot of studios right now is to let AI write scripts that will, after the writer's strike, then be rewritten by a human being. So a human's hand will be in it, and it will be in it from the beginning, because I'm sure they'll feed some specifics to the AI. It won't just be, write a movie about Storm.
And write a first act of a Power Rangers episode.
I'm going to ask it to write a movie about Storm. I'm going to give it nothing else, just that. I've thought about doing some live shows like this where I just feed stuff into chat GPT and see what happens. I'm sure a lot of other people have done this, but it's kind of fun. Right here, we'll just make it do an outline. Write because it'll be short, a movie outline about Storm from the X-Men.
X-Men, this is the day.
I'm giving it nothing else. Title, Storm, Rise of the Elements. All right, all of them?
I thought it was about to be Rise of the Elephants. That sounds much better.
Oh, it's giving me all 3 acts.
Look at that.
Act 1, we open on a young Aurora Monroe. Oh, look, it's like...
X-Men Origins Wolverine.
X-Men Origins Storm. Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say. We open on a young Aurora Monroe.
Well, there was the scene where a young Aurora was in X-Men. You remember that deleted scene?
Yeah, I forgot about that. Living on the streets of Cairo, using her powers to pickpocket and survive. Okay, accurate. She is haunted by memories of her traumatic childhood in Kenya and the loss of her parents, which she blames on her uncontrollable powers. One day, she is discovered by Professor Xavier, who offers her a place at his school for mutants. Aurora is hesitant at first, but eventually accepts the offer and travels to the United States with Xavier and his X-Men. Hey, I'm just gonna glimpse through this real quick. I'm not gonna read all of this. It gave us 4 acts.
Wow, there's
weird.
Well, ChatGPT plays by its own rules.
It really does. It even gave us an epilogue.
Oh, 4+ an epilogue? Wow.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
This is a real epic.
Which is like writing which is like writing an episode of TV, because TV episodes are in 5 acts. I don't know if you know that, but
yeah.
Do you know why TV episodes are in 5 acts?
No.
Commercial breaks.
So
I don't know if streaming episodes are still written that way. They aren't, most of them, because that's actually a movie cut up into
13 acts.
Alex Barron, that's why I didn't keep reading. It continued to stay that generic. Yeah.
Yeah, it's reading all the wikis in the world and like just compiling everything.
Yeah, but that's how a lot of movies are made now. Like I'm telling you, some of this is not going to you're not going to be able to tell.
Mutale. Thoughts on Jason Momoa having a 50-page treatment for Aquaman 2, which had Arthur going to the UN to talk about the melting ice caps, which WB scrapped.
Well, good on WB then. That sounds awful. Let's just be as preachy as humanly possible.
I want to see that Aquaman going to the UN to have a discussion.
Yeah, seriously. Does he come in chugging a beer? Like
Smashes it on the ground.
Another. Yeah.
That's pretty good.
I mean, sure, I'm expecting some environmental messaging in my Aquaman movies, but that sounds like a guy who went, I've got a mission here. Why don't you just be an actor? I don't know.
That's pretty good. Thanks, Mitali.
I had not heard about that.
I had not heard of that, but
I want to read it. Can we read that on air instead of generic chat GTP storm?
It says a 50-page treatment for Aquaman, which had Arthur go. So it wasn't 50 pages about this
of
meeting
just
with
that
the
happening?
UN. It was just part of it, and that probably made headlines because it was silly. But
yeah,
I don't know what his 50-page treatment would be like. That would be fun to read. I don't want to though. It'd be fun for someone else to read and then talk about it in a video that I can watch.
Yeah, I was gonna say like I'd like to read the Cliff's Notes of that. DJ, what are the super chats looking like?
I just got 3 left.
Oh, that's not bad at all. Okay, cool.
Yeah. We got 3 more. John Ty Mutale and 123 Rock Fan. Rock Fan. John Ty, $5. With the progress of AI and technology, will we...
Oh, crap.
Oh, no.
I lost it. Hang on.
He lost the gong. This is why we need to
this
invest.
is just a disaster here.
This is why we needed a floor gong, because it can't fall off the desk.
Yeah, no, I dropped it off of a stool. Hold on. Sorry about that. This is how geeky I am. I've got this sitting on... How did it... Wow, it's sitting real low on this thing now. I gotta fix that later. Yeah, I've got it sitting on a Killer Instinct stool.
Oh, my favorite kind of stool.
I'm sitting right next to my arcade here.
Oh, nice. Next week you can turn it and we can see the arcade in the background.
Yeah.
For your next week's trick.
I could. If I decide I want to deal with just one screen again, though.
Cap's just so excited he's on a laptop now that he's just gonna like run around the whole house.
Yeah, I'm like, I got the power. Well, it was really exciting last night because I was able to do my Here's the Grid stream without having to pick up this table and move it all the way on the other side, which is what I was doing before. And I was like, oh, this is so liberating. And the lighting is way better over here.
Yeah, nice. John Ty, with the progress of AI and technology, will we live in a world that looks like Star Trek or the world of Wall-E? Wow, that's 2 opposite sides.
Isn't this depressing?
Spectrum.
And I'm sorry to say that it's looking closer to that Wall-E future. I think I'm gonna be
definitely closer than Star Trek. Obviously,
yes. I'm gonna be really cliche about this, but hear me out, because this doesn't mean the Star Trek future is not possible. This is dark before the dawn kind of thing, right? Where like you gotta hit rock bottom before the society can appreciate the Star Trek future enough to get us there, and we're just not to that place yet. Sometimes it feels like it. We're not to that rock bottom place yet. And the reason that in Star Trek canon, it is even believable that we ever get to that hopeful of a near utopia is because that had to happen in that universe. It isn't that, especially once you get to First Contact and we really flesh this out, and I think even in TOS, there were hints that we hit a major dystopian place before we turn things around. Like, you have to experience that history and remember it before we can evolve enough as a society, get enlightened enough for that to happen, right? So, like, I'm sorry to say this. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but I think something like World War III or Zombie Apocalypse or totalitarian worldwide dictatorship has to happen before that is possible, before you can get that pendulum to swing the other way. And it happens in Star Trek. That's why it's believable. You have World War III before you have the Federation, before you have Starfleet.
Maybe we need to experience the Velociraptor first.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's what I'm really getting at.
Takes up all the Velociraptor lovers so that we can have World War III and the dinosaur lovers will be safe. I actually don't know what you're actually writing. That's probably not. That was a joke. I don't know what he's actually writing in his book. Don't take that as the log line because that was a joke.
I don't know exactly what I'm writing with that book yet either. It's very much in the early preliminary stages, but I gotta finish my movie script first, and
yeah.
I've got crazy things going on in my life that's slowing me down. But
it's interesting what you were just saying, because there's a hint of that in Endgame with that one line where Thanos says, "I thought knocking out half the universe would make you stronger."
Yeah.
I wished he was talking about more of that in Infinity War. I would have liked it a lot more, because he's in Infinity War. He's just talking about like it's just going to solve everything because there's more resources. And I'm like, what? The population is going to come back? Like,
yeah.
If you were talking about, if that was your plan to like make everyone join together and like make them a better people, like you should have said something. Why didn't you mention that? You could have told people.
Yeah, it should have been like a 9/11 metaphor or something, right? Like it should have been, except he's doing it intentionally to bring the country and the world together. Because obviously that's not what the terrorists in 9/11 were after.
Why didn't he say that to Gamora or something?
Yeah, like, exactly.
Like, I liked that line in an Endgame because like, oh wait, they do have something here, but then it never really came up again. Anyway, Mutale.
Oh, you're just making me so frustrated with Thanos again.
Mutale, if Stan Lee...
Wait, is this a super chat?
Yes, it is. Thank you, sir.
Well, now it doesn't reverberate anymore.
Oh. That just sounded like you clanged your dinner tray together.
Oh, I gotta fix it. Anyway, I'm sorry.
Clang, clang. Swish, swish. Clang, clang.
I don't know if this was the best idea I ever had. There's a Klingon in the first episode of Enterprise named Clang.
Klangon?
And his name has 2 A's in it. So I can't help but every time I hear they go, Clang!
Mutale wants to know, if Stan Lee didn't die, what should his cameo have been in No Way Home? Also, is there anyone on Geekvolution who you think failed upwards on the channel? Oh, this is in reference to our failing upwards about writers' conversation earlier.
And then somebody immediately after that said, oh, clearly Austin failed upwards. And if Austin was here, he'd go, agreed.
Agreed?
Joke's on everybody. Now he's on the superhero rewind commentaries.
He's made it all the way to the top.
Yeah, exactly. So,
his master plan is complete. Tanking the channel.
So I have 2 possible ideas for what the Stan Lee cameo should have been in No Way Home. And one is kind of meta and maybe way too sappy. And maybe I'm glad that this couldn't have happened. But one thing I could have imagined them doing is get meta with it and make it like the last episode of the 90s show. And have the scene where we find out that Stan Lee, where he plays himself finally, and he is the architect of all of this, right? You go to the universe where Spider-Man is a fictional character and he created him. And the other thing to do, because you have this silly idea that you have all these characters played by different actors that are supposedly the same character, you go to a universe where Stan Lee is J. Jonah Jameson. That'd be the other way to do it.
That'd be really funny.
Or you bring him to us, I guess, because we didn't really go to other universes, but you find some excuse to get Stan Lee here, either as himself or as J. Jonah Jameson.
Yeah, you pull him in from Spider-Man 3, and he's kind of doing his welcome, true believer, and he's doing his narrating thing, and then you also pull the kid in from the How It Should Have Ended of Spider-Man 3, who's like, Stan Lee, quit narrating.
Stop narrating. That's great.
But yeah, there's a million things you could have done. And once you got multiverse, like you can do anything with the cameo. You could reference his cameo in the Amazing Spider-Man television show. He could be cameoing as that version of himself.
Now I wish we'd used that as an excuse in that movie for Sandman to finally say, I have a daughter. That makes it okay for me to break the law.
Well, he would have had to say anything in that movie for that to happen.
Oh, that's a good point.
He
just holds up a like Wile E. Coyote sign.
Yeah, he's just a mud monster for the whole movie with like a couple lines they got from him over the phone. That's all he is.
Guys, we're just going to go 10 more minutes here in the program.
All right. Well, I've got one more super chat from 123 Rock Fan.
Well, let's do that, and then let's see how many Patreon questions we can knock out before I've got to table the rest of them for next time. Or I don't know, if I was going to say if I had enough, I would consider carving out a little time sometime this weekend or beginning of next week and just going on and doing a separate video on my own. But maybe that's how I'll handle those when that happens. I don't know yet. I'm kicking many things around.
All right. What kind of film would you want to watch first? A highly ambitious film that fails, or an extremely safe film that's mindless but entertaining?
I have a tough time with that kind of question without more specifics about what exactly the project is. You know what I mean? Like I have a tough time with thinking about it in that broad of terms, because ambitious, I can appreciate a movie that is trying real hard at something fascinating that it just falls apart at doing. But at the end of the day, what I tend to appreciate more is just a movie that, and I'm a broken record, but that makes it clear what it's after and then more or less achieves that. So read that second part again.
So you got a highly ambitious film that fails, or an extremely safe film that's mindless but entertaining.
Yeah, I mean, like it's easy to go, well, it's safe, so it almost cheats if it works. But like, I don't know, if it's more effective at what it's trying to do, it's more effective. You know what I mean? But also, it might just depend on the mood I'm in. You know what I mean? Like there are failures of movies that I like for what they ended up being anyway. I don't know. Like, you almost have to just throw two things at me, like more specific things. I don't know. Like, do you have a better answer to that?
No, I mean, yeah, it definitely depends on the subject matter of the movie. But I do find really ambitious movies that I think if it's something you're going to talk about, the first one is much better, and more interesting to talk about with other people than just a mindless, like, I don't know. I think I do find the first one a little bit more interesting than kind of like a Fast and the Furious just movie. I don't know. I think the safe part is what turns me off more so than the like, because you said like a movie that just sets out what it's going to be and sticks to it. I think that's a little bit different than something that's trying to be so safe that it's not taking any risks and it's kind of just trying to please everyone and doesn't. But
really I guess the problem is
but it's definitely depends.
There's some assumptions, kind of almost contradictory assumptions that are baked into the premise, right? Like, because it said safe, but the assumption, it sounds like, is that regardless of it being a safe, I am entertained by it. And I'm not generally entertained by the kind of movie you're talking about. So I find that very difficult to answer. Like, if it's...
I guess like Mario would be an example.
I was going to say that. If you put the Mario movie up against Jupiter Ascending, I'd rather watch the Mario movie.
Yeah, but if you put like...
But I was entertained by that.
But like... Ang Lee's Hulk movie versus like, I don't know, something that came out recently that's just like generic superhero. I'd much rather watch Hulk.
Yeah, sure. That versus
Venom, or something. Well, Venom takes risks, just weird
or Black
risks,
Widow, or
yeah, something like that. Like if you're gonna give me an auteur's ambitious, crazy superhero movie, I'd much rather take that.
I would also argue that in its way, Mario did take risks, because you look at the Sonic movies and they seem to think that they had to plug in for a formula and try not to be too much like Sonic. And in the Mario movie said, let's just be Mario. And like, if it took a risk, the risk it took was maybe people just accept it for what it is. We don't have to mess with it.
Yeah. But I do think that's a lot safer than the first Mario movie.
Well, no, yeah, absolutely, certainly. In comparison to that, yeah, but the conventional wisdom of Hollywood seems to be, well, you can't just let it be what it is. You gotta plug in for some kind of a formula that's like tried and true in his word. So I'm just saying, in a weird way, it actually did kind of take that risk. But I think because it's effective at what it's doing, it doesn't seem very risky, because it made everybody happy and 1 million people saw it. So,
yeah.
Anyway,
good question though. We don't.
Yeah, I struggled with that one.
It's a struggle, but it's a good thing to talk about. Interesting topic.
How many more Patreon questions do we have?
Oh, those are spread out.
Yeah, sorry about that.
But there's quite a few. The next one I have is from Michael McAllister,
Yeah.
and it is a long one, so I will read the whole thing. I've got a
Okay.
question. Forgive me if it is long. Why are people
Forgiven.
so why are people so interested in character deaths in fiction? Series like The Walking Dead, Hunger Games, The Last of Us, and many other popular franchises have huge amounts of people that watch purely to see which character may or may not die. It confuses me because death in shows creates a hole for the story moving forward. Everyone wants to see who dies in the next Marvel, Star Wars, Harry Potter film, but can't see that after their favorite characters are gone, there is rarely anything else to fill their spot. Good death can be a good drama, but seems to be a cheap, short term tactic for garnering sympathy oftentimes.
Yeah. It's the novelty of it, right? Of like, I've got to be there when that really important thing happens. Like, we're conditioned to some degree, especially if you watch a lot of mainstream stuff, all growing up, where like you've got to be there when the big crazy thing happens. And these days, the big difference is when I was a kid, you hardly ever saw a major character killed off in a TV show because everything was episodic and characters weren't allowed to grow and change very much, and each episode was supposed to be watchable without anything else. And so you tuned in for basically a short story set in a universe you were comfortable with, not to see the big crazy thing happen. But then there was also this kind of weird gimmick to it where it was like, but what if they actually did do the crazy thing this time? Like, you knew they were never going to, but with all the advertising, they would try to get you to think maybe this is the time that we finally let Lois and Clark get married. Or maybe this is the time that we, kill off the main character. These days, it's the opposite. Now it's everybody's expendable in serialized fiction, especially like dystopian or post-apocalyptic things, of which there are so many examples now, where every other episode, some major character is probably going to die, and you've got to be there when that crazy thing happens. Yeah, I don't know why people aren't more disappointed by it, because as he eloquently put it, sometimes, or sorry, very often, the quality of the thing isn't as good after certain major characters go, or the person that you were there most for, that you were really invested in. What do you think the psychology is there, DJ? Like, I'm kind of dancing around it a little bit. Like,
I don't know. I'm so removed from ongoing, long-running continuity that I never have that. I'm much more like just individual
you
stories
just
that I
want a
don't.
story, yeah.
Yeah, I don't even care about that kind of stuff because like in my mind it would be like, oh, you want to tell a story about Superman dying? Great, tell that story, then tell another story, then tell another story. Like I don't have like continuity's just never been a thing I've been interested in. So I wouldn't build up all of this emotion because I won't think of it as like one long running thing that would end. I would just be like, I mean, I guess, well, that's he's not saying just that though, because he says like in the Harry Potter movies. So that's like that's a shorter form series but I still don't ever go into it like, oh, I wonder who's gonna die, or I wonder I do know people that do that though, like especially
Yeah.
People who watch Game of Thrones, like, oh, that's the fun of it, is like anyone could die, anyone's on the table. I'm like, I don't even, like, that's not, yeah, I don't know, I don't get the appeal to put that as the main focus.
I get the appeal of that in theory, but less in practice. If it's less about, I want to see who's gonna die, almost like you're taking bets on it or something. I've got to see who's gonna die, versus because it could happen, the stakes are so high.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? That like I'm invested because I'm scared for these people I care about. If it's more on almost, this is a weird way to put it, DJ, but if it's almost on the level of being entertained like in a horror film, where you are scared for the people involved and that makes you invested in their plight. So you have to be there week to week because you're fearful for what will happen to them. Versus this is a subtle difference, but versus I'm entertained watching people die. As opposed to there's still an entertainment component to it, but it's almost like a train wreck you can't look away from. And I don't mean that the writing is bad or whatever. I mean that you're like, God, I don't want this person. I really care about what happens to them, but I'm scared for their life. I have to find out what happens. Mm-hmm. There's a distinction there, like that I kind of get.
Yeah.
And I have to have had this with things.
Yeah, nothing's coming to mind, but I'm sure at some point. I got nothing. But yeah, that makes more sense to me than the examples he kind of brought up with like big ongoing franchises.
And I've definitely been shocked and sometimes impressed that I had the emotions I had for a fictional person that doesn't exist in things like Walking Dead or 24. But I wasn't tuning in necessarily because I wanted to see who would die. It just was effective when it happened. Mm-hmm. If that makes any sense. But I have had stories where I knew the point of it was this character is going to die, and I wanted to see the way they chose to tell that story. But that's different.
Yeah. Do we have time for another?
Let's do one more. I'm giving a lot of really vague, unhelpful answers tonight.
All right.
Tough questions, folks.
Saqib, if you could have any guest on the live show, dead or alive, who would it be?
Well, I'm going to go to my stock answer for this. I said this a couple weeks ago, or maybe last week, about like the person I would most want to go have dinner with right now. And it would be the same thing as who I would put on the Captain Logan. Todd McFarlane, absolutely. Would love to put Todd McFarlane on the Captain Logan show. Next to that, okay, I actually have a top three. It's Todd McFarlane, it's Michael Rosenbaum, because I would love to do what he does in reverse to him. I'd love to do his show with, or not exactly his show, but you know what I mean. I love to talk to him in an open, vulnerable kind of way, like he does on his show. And then the third thing,
you'd like to rate him with roses.
No, not the Smallville show, the Inside of You show. And then, no, I mean, I would love to sit down and, I'd love to do a commentary on Smallville with Michael Rosenbaum. That would be fun.
That'd be awesome.
I'd love to do a commentary on the finale with him and see if he gets as pissed off at it as I do, because I bet he would. Given things that he gets annoyed about with Smallville, I think he'll hate the finale. But
that's going to be interesting when we get to the stuff that he's not in and probably has never watched.
Yeah. Oh, it has definitely never watched.
Yeah.
He hasn't watched most of what he is in.
Yeah. That'll be interesting when they get to that part of the podcast.
No, AMC, I'm kind of past the Patrick Stewart thing, I'm sad to say. I used to almost obsessively want to be Patrick Stewart, and I don't have that anymore. I'm sorry to say. Maybe 10, 15 years ago. I feel a little bit differently about it now. But, and that's nothing against Patrick Stewart. I just don't think, after like the way I felt about Picard and just where he is at his age, I don't think it would be as much fun as it might have been at one time. That sounds awful. I don't mean to be like, ageist or whatever, but I don't think it would be the same experience that would have been 10, 15 years ago. And then the third person is James Rolfe.
Oh yeah. Those would all be great. I'd watch all three.
Oh, cool. You'd mod all three.
Of course, if you ask me to.
DJ, we're not going to answer anymore tonight, but just let me know ballpark how many Patreon questions there are, and I'll either move them to next week or I'll try to do a short show before next Thursday and knock them out.
There are 1, 2, 3, 4. I think just 4.
Okay.
I think we got through 5. Yeah, we had 9. I think we got through 5. There's 4 left.
That's not bad. Okay, I'll play it by ear. So if you left a Patreon question we didn't get to, I will get to it on the next show. And if we've stacked up too many at the end of that show, I'll do an extra, half hour, 45-minute show on my own. Everybody, thanks so much for being here. DJ, thanks for modding and chatting with me as always. Sorry to keep everybody up a little bit later. But I had a good time, and I hope you guys did as well.
I did.
That's honestly all that matters at the end of the day. Well, guys, I will be back with you again tomorrow night for the Suicide Squad. It's going to be late. It's going to be 10 Central,
yeah.
but I hope you'll consider joining me for that. And in the meantime, I was Captain Logan, and this was DJ Martinez.
See you guys.
Later, folks. Oh, hold on. I have the wrong music here.
Just hit the gong.
Oh, you know what? That's actually a great idea. I'll just do that. Okay, bye. I'm not going to remember to keep doing that every time, am I? Bye, folks.